Welcome everyone to our panel about the supply chain resiliency. I'm having an amazing guest today with me. I'm Lotan Lewkovic. I'm a general partner at Grupo Ventures, and we are very happy and honored to be one of the supporters of Industry 4.0 in Israel for the last few years. We're an Israeli venture capital fund that specializes and focuses on early stage investments. Today we have with us Farid Sevilla, a group director of global supply chain innovation from Procter & Gamble. We have Robert Schoenleber. Did I pronounce it right?
Schoenleber, yeah.
Head of Innovation and Technology from Continental, and Jose Antonio Parra, Vice President of Global Digital Transformation and Data Analytics from Grupo Bimbo. So guys, besides like the big titles, let's maybe move each one by one and tell us more about yourself and your company. So Farid, can we start with you, please?
Yeah, absolutely. Sounds good. Well, first of all, thank you for the invitation and for having me here. Great to be with all of you. My name is Farid Sevilla, and I lead the Global Supply Chain Innovation program at Procter & Gamble. The organization that I lead is an organization of about 10 people who are technologists and innovators in the entire supply chain. And our job is to bring disruptive emerging technologies into P&G to accelerate our digital transformation on the supply chain and to make sure that we make supply chain a competitive advantage and that we stay at the forefront of innovation in the supply chain domain.
That's great. Thanks, Farid. Robert?
Yes, my name is Robert Schoenleber, leading the department Innovation Technologies within ASCM at Continental, located in Frankfurt. And I'm very happy to be with you guys here to discuss today about the topic supply chain resilience, and looking forward to the next 25 minutes.
Thanks, Robert. Jose, please.
Yes, hi, I'm Jose Antonio. I go by Antonio, and I look after all of the information, global information and global digital transformation for Grupo Bimbo, the largest bakery in the world. And so you may ask, why a guy from IT talking in this part around supply chain resilience? Well, I started my career with Procter & Gamble. Then I moved into finance, and then I spent 15 years with Coca-Cola, the Coca-Cola company, leading supply chain for North America and for Latin America. And then I moved and led supply chain also for Grupo Bimbo under the logistics. So taking that and seeing that most of the supply chain has to do with information management, it makes sense to make this transition. So I think it's a good combination going back and forth between IT and supply chain. Supply chain of the future is about information management. So thank you for the invitation. I'm very glad to be here with you.
So Farid, maybe let's start with you for a second. What are the key challenges that you see once you're trying to digitalize your organization's supply chain?
Well, thank you for having me, and that's a great question. I think at P&G, and I think this is a common challenge in most large enterprise. The challenge that we have today in building a autonomous and digital supply chain is really about the data. And some of the challenges that we have are associated with having their data available, having the right data flows, and maintaining the data integrity, and maintaining the right level of governance on the data. We're trying to build sophisticated advanced analytics models using digital twin capabilities and concepts to really bring to life the vision of building a supply chain that relies on less human interventions and relies more on the machine to make those decisions on a day-to-day basis, on real time, ideally. So for us to be able to build this future state of the supply chain, we really need to solve the foundational issues that we have with data. And as I mentioned in the beginning, those issues lie on the availability, the flow, the integrity, and how do you maintain governance on the data. So I would say that is the main problem holding us back today. And once we resolve some of those foundational challenges that we have with data, I think that we're going to be positioned to accelerate the creation, the construction of that autonomous supply chain.
Great. Robert, Conti is a totally different company than P&G, but are your challenges similar to what Farid just shared?
Yeah, that's a perfect question again. Yes, actually, it is the same question. Our main challenge is to really elaborate all the data we have out there in the world, in the Conti world, and also for us, we developed a strategy of autonomous supply chain. We call it autonomous supply chain network, and here the data is the key for success, and connecting all the single data hubs we have out there in the system is the biggest challenge we are facing, and connecting all the knowledge out of the single data sets.
Thanks, Robert. So Antonio, can you save us from the data problem, or we're going to join the data party?
No, absolutely. We definitely join the data party. It is a challenge, absolutely, and we do envision, just as Farid was mentioning, an autonomous supply chain. And if we were to look at supply chains from the past, we have advanced quite a bit, and we can say we can have today autonomous supply chains from the past, but not from the future. And we're moving into the future. And on top of that, I would add as a challenge understanding the business impact of why are we changing what we are changing? Why are we digitalizing? What is the impact for the business? And that's where we are finding most of the challenges as well.
So let's stay with you for a second, and let's try to talk about the elephant in the room. We all had a very interesting year, and COVID was affecting everything that we did. Antonio, can you share with us what was the short-term effect about COVID-19 at your supply chain? But maybe after that's even more interesting, what is the long-term new opportunities that this new crisis have created?
So short term, we are the largest bakery company in the world, so we provide bread. The bread flew out of the shelves. Everybody was crazy about getting food, getting prepared for a lockdown that was going to be significantly, and bread plays a significant part on that. So we had to react in the short term, and in many markets we saw an explosion that, of course, nobody anticipated. So taking that into a long term, we definitely want to create more flexible supply chain to be more resilient. We have to look at our portfolios, understand we were forced to make some selections of what items got a priority. But again, isn't that something that we should take down and move that with more emphasis on how we go and do business into the future? That proved to be good for the business, good for the consumer. So a combination of data-based driven decisions on what we supply, where we supply it. And again, just as Farid was mentioning, supported by digital twins, which we have been investing significantly on the past 3 years. That's a thing that we want to go for.
Farid, have you seen anything else in your supply chain during the COVID days?
We've seen a lot, for sure, during the COVID days. But I must say that the supply chain at P&G responded quite exceptionally when the first wave of COVID impacted the world. And we were able to navigate some of the tough waters that we were facing at the time, and now seem like we're heading in that direction again, at least in the US and in Europe. And I would say, though, that yes, we did see some challenges at the shelf level. For example, in the United States, it was on the news quite frequently about the shortages of toilet paper and paper towels. Both categories are manufactured by P&G and other competitors. But really, what the pandemic, what has really done for us, it has really changed our focus around a resilient supply chain. It has accelerated, I should say, our focus on building a resilient supply chain. And some of the things that we are working on today is in how do we integrate the pillars of having a resilient supply chain? How do we power a resilient supply chain by data and data analytics and advanced analytics? Some of the things that we're working on today in the resilience space is how can we have objective foresight of the impact to the supply chain in real time? How can we create alert systems and notification systems to make sure that if we believe there'll be an event that will impact the supply chain, how do we respond? How do we identify the risk? How do we mitigate it? How do we assess the business impact, and what are the corrective actions that we can take to minimize the impact to the supply chain? So I think that overall COVID-19 has really accelerated our focus on building resilient supply chains, and it has accelerated the innovation efforts that we had against the resilient work that we were doing before. I think that because resilient was a focus in supply chain before, we were able to navigate the pandemic in a more effective way. Obviously, the response was not perfect, but I think better than we could have predicted before. And now it's really about how do we go from here, right? How do we build a more resilient supply chain, more prepared for any future impacts or any future events that may have an impact to our manufacturing operations, our suppliers, our customers, transportation operations, and that sort of thing.
Great. So Robert, we talked about bread going off the shelves. We talked about toilet paper going off the shelf. Please share with us how many cars went off the shelf. We didn't see it in the news.
Yeah.
And maybe you can
Another
also...
cars are coming.
Yeah. So how COVID affected your business, and what maybe you can share with us also, what are the key actions that you took in order to improve the resilience of your supply chain?
Actually, yeah, we are facing also a strong impact of COVID-19, especially in the beginning, in the beginning of summer times, or changing from spring to summer times. But not that the customer orders are going through the shelf, but due to the fact that there was some production stop to secure the people from and at the customer side. This affects also our order situation in short term, and we needed to be agile. We faced that situation, we challenged that situation, and it is now also speeding up our focus on the data, our focus to be more agile, to raise intelligent production planning or forecasting, to use every data set we have to get resilient, and to change also on short term our production sets and our customer requirements.
So, guys, I'm very surprised. You all talk about data, you talk about agility, you talk about all these things, and we're not in a startup panel. You are all big, very big companies. And I think that when you're talking about supply chain, we also, you all mentioned that. You talk about data, about silos, taking the right decisions, understanding the right challenges. And I think that what we also see from our angle, that every solution eventually that dealing with supply chain, because it's so cross-functional in all the organization, touching all the different parts, I think that sometimes we have to be dealing with partnerships. So maybe, Antonio, we can start with you. Which kind of partnerships that you think that your organization recently took, both internal partnerships within different parts maybe that didn't touch supply chain before, or maybe even weren't from the startup nation, so working with the external companies, the technology companies, maybe startups?
So, in the past, we had this idea of building to last, and now we're building to change, which is a significant change in paradigm. And we're finding that creating all those capabilities within our own organization is, for one, it's crazy. Second, it is impossible. And so it is the right thing to go and to establish partnerships with companies that can complement you, that can bring that speed of change, and that can integrate to a larger organization. And in making that, we have to make ourselves more like a startup, and I'm talking the biggest one, and become agile and all the things that Robert has made a lot of emphasis in, and that is fundamental if we want to keep our relevance and our leadership in the markets. And of course, understanding what are we missing, what we have no idea about, what we want to experiment and to drive the new frontiers with. Okay, because otherwise we're just going to be keeping the same things we're doing, and that would lead to a disaster. Fortunately, we're taking the contrary, and that's why we have people in Israel, in Silicon Valley, and in different places doing all kind of searches for new ventures to partner with and then grow together.
Thanks, Antonio. Farid, how about yourself? What kind of partnerships can you mention, or if you can maybe even give a few of your thoughts how to do the right partnerships within with the external part of the organization?
Yeah, we have. So when I think about partnerships and collaborations, we have very strong partnerships with our suppliers and our customers. But in the context of resiliency and supply chain convergence, it is imperative that we work with our suppliers and customers in a completely more integrated way. I think that we need to stop thinking about supply chains within the boundaries of a corporation or a company, because we are heavily dependent on our suppliers, and our customers are dependent on us. So we need to think about it as a truly end-to-end, wall-less, boundless type of supply chain. So resiliency, if I take you back to your question about resiliency and the pandemic, I think what the pandemic has taught us, among other things, is that we gotta enhance the collaboration and the partnership that we have with our suppliers and our customers. Now, the other side of your question is about partnerships with startups and how do we do it. P&G has a startup outpost network around the world, literally in every startup ecosystem around the world. And we have individuals who are frequently surveying the landscape, looking for startups, looking for technologies, looking for ideas, and create those partnership opportunities with them, pilot the technology, and establish a collaboration, an ongoing collaboration with those startups and those companies. P&G is very much open for business to do pilots, do experiments with startups, co-development in some instances. And this is just part of our day-to-day work. We've built the global startup outpost network almost 10 years ago, and it's paid out great dividend to P&G. Obviously, we cannot develop every piece of technology that we have today. It takes too long and it's expensive. So collaboration with startups, it's foundational to the work that we do today, and especially when you think about where we want to go, right? And that is, how do we build a resilient, autonomous supply chain?
Robert, maybe share a few thoughts from Conti's side. You're very active in Israel with the startup, or even maybe the big acquisition. But maybe share this time more about the partnership that you're having.
Yeah. It's a best fit also with Farid words. So back in 2018, when we started with our new strategy towards autonomous fast forward. Now I have just an echo. Yeah. We developed also an organization, kind of a startup organization within our supply chain management. So here we established an innovation funnel to really get fast insights into new technologies, into new suppliers, into new startups, and working together with also startup environment within Conti and also with the Startup Nation. So with CoPace, which is a startup department or focusing on startup department within Continental, we are working strongly together also in Israel and in the Silicon Valley to identify new solutions, to identify startups, to piloting them, to really get fast insights into the possibilities. As I said before, data is king, but also speed is king, to really get to not lose time on the evaluating of new technologies. And for that we need to work together with startups and not to develop everything by our own. This is then just taking too much time, and for that we really like to investigate also the startups and the market here.
I must say, when we started this panel, I thought you're going to get like completely different answers from 3 different companies in different territories, different domains. But I think there's much more similarity than I thought. We don't have much time on our panel, so let's maybe do one last round for our audience that is comprised from different investors and startups and companies. Maybe can each one of you give like 2-3 quick tips. How do you think that we can accelerate the adoption of such changes in each one's supply chain? Who should we talk to? How should we present it? What idea is the next best thing that everybody is looking for? So maybe, Robert, we can start with you.
Yeah. Well, to get in best contact to, we have 2 possibilities: either to contact within our COPACE organization or by myself. So as I am leading the innovation and technology within central logistics, I'm looking here into the intralogistics part and also into the resilience part to work with my colleagues. And yeah, just be open, focusing, and look left and right, not focusing on one specific topic, but to get a broad picture and getting discussion with us. I guess is the key also to get into contact.
Thanks, Robert. Antonio?
So the problems of the supply chain of the past and present are pretty much resolved. So we have to be thinking about the problems of the supply chains of the future, and of course taking the lessons from events as this one that were so disruptive. A lot of opportunities are going to be coming our way. So I would encourage everybody to start looking more into what we're going to be doing next and less on what we're doing today. Okay, and to do that, you have to get in touch with all the entities you can think of: universities, other partners that are willing to cooperate, investment firms, startup adventures, and all that. So taking that ecosystem and making it part of your daily life is going to be opening your eyes to seize and to take advantage of the new opportunities. And hopefully you will be creating them and not just following it.
That's great. And Farid?
Yeah, to answer your question, we have an innovation accelerator for supply chain. The name of the program internally is called Shark Tank. In Israel specifically, we have an individual who is responsible for scouting the landscape. His name is Orna Hamini, and I believe you guys work with him already. So any external partner who is interested in doing business with us, feel free to contact me. You can find me on LinkedIn, Farid at Sevilla. Or you can email me. My information is publicly available on LinkedIn. So we recognize that the way forward is to really create these partnerships and really leverage the startup ecosystems around the world to get us moving in a more agile way. We recognize the cost and the speed of innovation at the corporate level. And we believe that the speed that we want it will come from startups. So totally open for business to continue to work with startups in Israel and outside of Israel, and that we look forward to creating more of those partnerships in the region.
So thank you very much, all. I think we had an amazing discussion today. We realized it's eventually all summed up to have the right data, focus on the data, focus on the right contact point, and be forward-looking. And it's amazing to see how many different companies from different countries all share the same message. And thank you for spending time with us, and I'm sure that all the audience back at home really appreciate it. So thank you, Farid. Thank you, Robert. Antonio. Thank you, Antonio. And looking forward to see you in Israel when it's not going to be by Zoom or Skype. So please feel free to join us. And back to the next session. Thank you very much.